Hey guys, this is Pratik Kamasani and today I'm going to talk about part 2 of my Power BI portfolio project Star Science. In the part 1, I talked about how I imported data, how I managed to do the web scraping, the painful process I've been through, and in this video I'm going to talk about how I approached report design and how I implemented it. Like many other reports I design, most of the times I start with Canva. Well, there are times where I start with pen and paper, and or plenty of the times I start with Canva. It's like a wireframing for me. So for this example, I wanted to create a one pager with the interactivity, and I wanted it to look like a website. So for example, you go on any website, you click on something and it gives you the description about it. So that's the kind of navigation I wanted to go for. So in Canva, I went for traditional, the default layout, same size as the Power BI size. And I started keeping different pictures as my background. So I wanted it to be galaxy and like stars and things. So I went and found some pictures that talks about it. This is one of them, and this is the another one. Um, so I think I quite like both of these, but I'm not sure about where I could keep the buttons, and also not sure about the colors I wanted to use or the fonts, I don't know. And then I found this image. I kind of liked it when I kept this the Studio X Science because it's kind of it's like littered. So then I added some buttons and it's kind of gave me the look and feel I wanted. And then I ended up exporting these two images, this image and this image, as a PNG, and then I used them as my background images in Power BI. In Power BI, I first used it as a background image for my report page. Then I initially thought, okay, I will use page navigation to move between my landing page to the next page, which is this one. The problem I faced is when I do the navigation from one page to the other page, the navigation is not really smooth. And later I thought, okay, I would use different pages for each of the sign, and then I could just navigate from each sign from one sign to the other sign. But the navigation won't be smooth because I'm using the page navigation. And if I wanted to get some kind of a smooth navigation, then I have to use bookmarks. So that's when I decided, okay, instead of using page navigation, I would use bookmarks. But this page would involve quite a few bookmarks because I wanted to show the image. I wanted to show some text here. And I also wanted to show some text over here. I have 12 signs, which mean at least I have to create 12 bookmarks. When you have those many bookmarks, it can be quite challenging. I love bookmarks, but when I'm creating more than few, it's definitely I be extra cautious. So for that reason, before I actually create any bookmarks, I first wanted to structure how I wanted to create my bookmarks. So basically, my idea is I click on each of these buttons or shapes or whatever I choose. And when I click on the Aquarius, I want to see the Aquarius characteristics and the images. And when I click on the other ones, I want to see that one. So instead of creating measures and all those things or adding slices and things, because here, when I look at this one visual, I have data coming from 3 different columns and I have different type of text formatting. Some of my text is in bold and some of my text is not in bold. To achieve that, instead of creating many measures and grouping and all those things, so here I just used the smart narrative and I filtered it on to show only for Aquarius. The same logic applies to the other ones as well. And after that, I grouped them in the way I wanted it. So this is my Aquarius one. I also created other groups. So let's look at it by step by step. So first what I've done is I imported those two images I wanted. Instead of using them as a background images, I'm just going to use them as a background of these visuals. So these are the two images that I created using Canva and those two. And I created the group with the filters already applied in the question. So for example, here, as you could see, it's Aquarius, and in my this another text as well, I have the value for Aquarius. And then I grouped it. And in the next step, I added all the buttons. So for these buttons, I placed all the buttons where I wanted to. I kept the border around it just so that I know exactly where my button is. If I want to resize or do any changes, I know exactly what it is. And I also I added titles, so I also know exactly where my button is actually sitting. And what it gives me is when I add a title, then it actually shows me which box is what. So it would be easy for me to hide and unhide later. I tend to keep the border until I'm finally done with my design, because that just gives me an idea of where my button actually is. In the next step, I just copied the existing buttons just like what I have here. So which means I still have the names, and did the same thing is I kept them where I wanted to. I have the titles and so does the border. And in the next step, I copied my Aquarius group 12 times. And in the next one, I hidden every possible item on that page. And at this stage, I duplicate this page, rename it, rename the page, and start creating the bookmark. To begin with, I start a blank one. So I'm going to call this all hidden. So that's my base bookmark. Then I'm going to enable my landing page. Then I'm going to show the landing page and create another bookmark, call it landing. Go back to all hidden. So next I want to start creating the Aquarius page. For that, first I need to have the background images that I want and also enable this group. And I'm going to create another bookmark called Star Signs Group. So now I'm going to enable my Aquarius, which is pre-filtered to show only Aquarius. So I'm gonna just create the bookmark, call it Aquarius. Now I go back to my star signs group and now enable the next star sign, which gives me pre-filtered to Aquarius. So what I need to do is I'm just gonna go here and start changing the thing. And I realized I am changing it at the wrong page. So go back to the recording page, probably start from the beginning. So the all hidden, I wanted it to be recording, and just hide everything. Update. Next, the landing, which is hide everything except the landing page. But over here, hide everything but the landing page. I mean, this is the pain I'm talking about. When you have too many bookmarks, it is quite confusing. So now I'm going to update this. Go back to all hidden. Now I want to create the star signs group. Now I go to star signs group and create a bookmark and name it star signs. Then create an Aquarius one, add a new bookmark, Aquarius. Go back to star sign, show the next set of visuals, which is pre-filtered to the Aquarius. So now we're going to go here and change to the next sign, which is Pisces, and save. The same goes here. I go and change to everything. And I'll worry about formatting in a bit, because even though if I change the color here, it doesn't really save it for me. So now once I'm happy with all the filters, I just select all, change to the font color I want to. And that works. So the same goes here. Change the font color and also the font size that I wanted to. And next I select this visual, which is custom. Go to filters, choose the sign I wanted to, and then also choose the image I wanted to. Well, this is where all the hard work I've done to pull all those images was not really useful at the end because I decided to show only one image. However, I learned how to pull all those images into Power BI. So always remember to close your filter pane and then create the bookmark. Rename my bookmark and also rename this group, just because it would be convenient, like, when you're coming back to this, you know exactly what group means what. It is a tiny bit of work when you're actually designing the model or developing, whatever the right word, but it saves a hell a lot of time when you come back to this report. So the same logic applied for all the rest of them. So I'll go to the existing example. As you could see here, what I did is I created various bookmarks, and each bookmark is filtered to show that particular sign. The hiding everything and then unhiding is a way I approach bookmarks when I'm designing it, and I think it works better than actually trying to add things later. So the important thing is just make sure how you want your report to look like, keep everything at the right places, and then hide everything. Once I'm happy with my final design, that's when I go to my button group and select all my buttons. You have to be there, the buttons have to be viewable, so I'll go to my landing page and then select all the buttons, and just basically, to begin with, I had my titles and also the border. So once I'm happy with everything, the position and everything, that's when I'll remove the borders, titles, our visual headers. We don't really need a visual header on the button because we don't want anything to be appearing when you publish into the Power BI service. The same thing goes to the other set of buttons I have. So again, here as well, I go here and I applied or removed all the settings I want. For the fill, for the default state, there is nothing, but on hover, I added a bit of color. So when the user navigates on this, it gives this a tiny bit of color. Let me close all these buttons. Well, all these things so that you could see what I mean. So when the user go over it, it gives a tiny bit of indication saying, like, click here, something is going to happen. And when you click on that, it gives you the layout and it kind of gives you that navigation. I think one thing I would have done differently is, for example, when I navigate from one to the others, it's quite smooth navigation. But when I go to landing page and go back to this one, there is that flash effect, like, if you see, like, you could see that there is this flash effect, and that's happening because I'm using two different images. Ideally, I should have not used these buttons. Instead of using two images, if I used one image, then that would have I would have not had that kind of a flash thing. But even if I'm using only bookmarks here, but I'm using the two different images as my background, so that's why I have that kind of a flash effect, which I am not super happy about, but it's just another project. Once I'm happy with my report, I'll make sure I hide every other page that I don't want my user to view, and I'll make sure I be on the landing page and then publish it to the service. Also, after publishing to the service, and if this is something, I've seen many people don't do it, but if you're demoing it to somebody, try to demo it in the full screen, especially if your page if it's you're working with the designs like this where you want to show the navigation, when you're showing in the full page, you could actually see the design better. So now I can hover over on the buttons and it changes the color. If I just stay there for a sec, it says click here to follow the link, and when I click on the link, that takes me there, and it kind of have the smooth navigation. If I be too picky, I think my buttons and the background is not really nicely aligned, but that's when the borders actually gives the useful, if you actually pay attention to them, is to be able to align them properly to your foreground and background. But I think here it kind of gives you that kind of 3D effect, so I'm all right with that. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.